Good morning, you're watching World News and I'm your host, Klaudia Czerwińska. Gdańsk is hosting a two-day gathering of European Commission officials set to present plans to tackle challenges posed by e-commerce platforms. The visit to Gdańsk has been delayed due to the Commission's President Ursula von der Leyen's health. Today, officials will attend a dinner, while tomorrow they're set for rounds of political discussions. During the visit, the College of Commissioners will meet with Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. The talks will revolve around priorities for the upcoming 6 months of the Polish presidency in the EU Council. Security in the region will be a key point of concern for Polish authorities. Additionally, several commissioners are expected to meet with the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, this week. This comes after EU's internal affairs ministers failed to shed light on the concept of the so-called return hubs last week. Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski is going to meet with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte today. The meeting will take place at NATO headquarters in Brussels.
On Wednesday, Minister Sikorski took part in the annual conference of EU ambassadors. Poland currently holds the rotating presidency in the Council of the European Union. Sikorski's presence at the conference came at the request of EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Kaja Kallas. It's also at Kallas's request that the Polish Foreign Minister will represent the European Union at the United Nations Security Council, as well as upcoming visits to Pakistan, Zimbabwe and Sri Lanka.
And by the way,
the Polish Foreign Ministry has deemed Donald Trump's proposal to relocate Palestinians from the Gaza Strip unfeasible. In a social media post, the ministry pointed out that Poland recognizes the Palestinian state and advocates for a two-state solution to the conflict in the Middle East.
Minister Radosław Sikorski has deemed President Trump's proposal to relocate the residents of the Gaza Strip as unfeasible. But we are open to discussing the US plan for providing security for these people. The minister emphasized that Poland recognizes Palestine and advocates for a two-state solution.
Friedrich Merz, who's leading the polls in Germany to become the country's next leader, has warned that the United States is undergoing significant changes under Donald Trump. Speaking at a rally ahead of general election later this month, Merz said the U.S. is no longer the America we used to know. Merz said he was very concerned about America's change in direction, citing the recent sacking of workers in the U.S. Justice Department and the release of prisoners convicted of taking part in the January 6th Capitol riot in 2021. Germans will head to the polls on February 23rd. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said the Trump administration is identifying and designating programs that will be exempted from the sweeping stop work orders issued for USAID. The administration said it would put on leave all directly hired employees of the agency and recall thousands of personnel abroad. On Wednesday, the United States stopped purchases for foreign food aid programs, hindering organizations providing humanitarian support in Ukraine.
Our preference was to go into USAID and work from the top down in identifying all of our programs. What are all the programs we fund around the world? Which are the ones that make us safer, stronger, and more prosperous? Which are the ones that align us with the foreign policy of the United States? And which are the ones that we should not be involved in? Not only is this a good idea, we owe it to the American taxpayer because this is taxpayer money. This is not a charity. These are not private funds. This is American taxpayer funds.
President Donald Trump's much-anticipated plan to end Russia's war in Ukraine may be presented at next week's Munich Security Conference in Germany.
The Bloomberg News Agency reports that American allies are expecting to be briefed on the proposals by the U.S. Special Envoy for Ukraine and Russia, Keith Kellogg. Kellogg posted on social media that he will be speaking about Trump's goal to end the conflict in Ukraine. Vice President J.D. Vance will also attend the three-day high-level summit. The Munich meeting takes place from February 14th to 16th, a week before the conflict enters its third year of fighting. It has been previously reported that the US plan may involve freezing the war on current front lines and providing security guarantees to Kyiv to prevent further attacks from Moscow. Earlier this week, Ukraine's President Zelenskyy said he was prepared to speak with Vladimir Putin if the US and EU were involved in the talks.
On Wednesday night, Russia launched drone strikes on Kharkiv in Ukraine, targeting the city's largest market and wounding security guards. At around 11 p.m., a Russian suicide drone struck the market's roof. Footage released by Ukrainian authorities shows the aftermath of the attack, with the market in a devastated state. Fortunately, due to the timing of the strike, there were no fatalities. Later, around 1 a.m., another drone struck the infrastructure of a transport business in the Novobaransky district of Kharkiv. The city, located just over 100 kilometers from the front line, has been repeatedly targeted by Russian strikes. The latest attack on Tuesday killed 4 people. The Polish Ministry of Culture and National Heritage has said the exhumation works in Volhynia will begin in the middle of April. In the Volhynia massacre of the 1940s, Ukrainian nationalists killed tens of thousands of Polish civilians in lands which were part of Poland before the outbreak of World War II. The 20-person team includes anthropologists, archaeologists, geneticists, and forensic medicine experts. They will establish a permanent base where the remains will undergo examination and identification. The goal is to determine the age and sex of the victims as well as their cause of death. Additionally, experts from Poland will take samples for comparative DNA analysis. The location of the exhumation efforts will not be announced, as the Polish side wants to avoid any unnecessary interference from bystanders. A historical warehouse has caught fire in the Polish port city of Gdańsk. As many as 30 firefighter crews have been dispatched to battle the blaze, which spread to over 2,500 square meters. No fatalities or injuries have been reported.
The hall, once used to service rail rolling stock, burst into flames at around 1 p.m. local time on Wednesday. 60 people had to be evacuated from the burning building. The fire was reported to have reached the roof of the warehouse, covering the surrounding area in clouds of smoke. Responding to the incident, the Polish Internal Security Agency is investigating whether the fire was caused by foreign intelligence services. The location of the fire raised the suspicion of Polish authorities, as the warehouse sits near the port of Gdansk, which is used to transport supplies to Ukraine.
Former Polish Defense Minister Mariusz Błaszczak has revealed secret and top-secret documents on Poland's defense plans against a potential Russian invasion from over a decade ago. That's precisely why Poland's Attorney General wants to strip the ex-minister of his immunity. Facing potential criminal charges, the former official from the Law and Justice opposition party has said he would gladly do it again.
Former Minister of Defense and one of the prominent members of the main opposition party in Poland, Mariusz Błaszczak, has no regrets when it comes to revealing top-secret state documents.
They asked me what I would do if I was faced with that decision once again. Well, let me tell you, I would make that exact same decision.
In an election ad in 2023, the right-wing former official claimed the plans of defense around the year 2011, during the previous term of Prime Minister Donald Tusk, placed Poland's potential line of defense against the Russians along the Vistula River, effectively giving up about half of Poland. The state prosecution argues ex-minister Błaszczak, contrary to what he says, did not declassify these documents for the good of the country.
The Attorney General believes former Minister Błaszczak revealed these documents for his own and his party's personal gain, breaking procedure for the purposes of the election campaign.
Members of the ruling coalition also point out that these plans, even those stored in archives, revealed parts of NATO strategy and Polish troops cooperating with NATO forces.
He gave up some variants of Polish defense plans on a plate, like a restaurant waiter, to all the foreign intelligence agencies. These were different scenarios, prepared in part with NATO.
The conservative politicians, on the other hand, don't even wish to recognize the legitimacy of the current Polish judiciary.
Does it really mean that we have a full democracy in Poland when the rulers only have immunity and the opposition does not? That's why Minister Błaszczak decided to defend himself.
Avoiding accountability for potential malpractices has been one of the recurring themes of the conservative camp in recent weeks. Former Minister of Justice Zbigniew Ziobro is now facing potential temporary detention after avoiding investigative hearings 5 times. One of his former deputies has fled to Hungary, and the former head of the State Reserves Agency is detained in the UK, awaiting extradition proceedings. Mariusz Błaszczak says he won't give up his immunity voluntarily either. It remains to be seen whether the former Minister of Defense, Mariusz Błaszczak, will actually lose his immunity. For revealing secret and top-secret documents, he could be facing up to 5 years in prison. From Warsaw, TVP World, Kazimierz Łysiak.
European prosecutors are examining how the Moscow office of an IT contractor helped build the EU's electronic border system. According to information published by the Financial Times, French IT group Atos used staff located in Moscow to buy software for the sensitive project.
The software aims to gather and store biometric data on all non-EU visitors to the European Union. Documents leaked to the Financial Times suggest the Atos branch in the Russian capital operated under a license granting the Russian FSB access to its work in the country. 4 sources close to the situation have said that the Moscow-based staff were directly involved in buying the software, which would typically require an EU security clearance. The EU's so-called entry-exit system will track every foreign traveller entering and exiting the bloc.
French Prime Minister François Bayrou's government survived 2 non-confidence votes in the National Assembly after the head of the far-right National Rally said he would not back the motion put forward by the left-wing opposition.
The result of the vote was as follows. The majority required for the motion of no confidence to be adopted out of an absolute majority of the members of the Assembly, 289. Votes in favor of its adoption, 128. As the required majority was not attained, the motion of no confidence was not held. Consequently, the conclusions of the Joint Committee on the Finance Bill for 2025 are deemed adopted.
The motion was submitted to Parliament on Monday by the far-left La France Insoumise party, which previously rejected the Republican-led government's budget proposal.
We then proposed a meeting with all the MPs who voted for this no-confidence motion. And let me say this clearly, we are not giving up, and we will never give up in the face of those who persist with a Macronist policy that has been defeated 3 times at the ballot box. We will continue to push for an alternative to this world of misery. To those listening, we want to say, have courage, the bad days will end.
La France Insoumise MPs insist that the vote of no confidence was the only viable reaction to PM Bayrou revoking Article 49.3 of the French Constitution to bypass a parliamentary vote when legislating the 2025 budget.
Most of the MPs of the New Popular Front held their ground, and we are the only ones today who oppose this government. You know that a motion of no confidence is the only possible response to the 49.3, the only one that allows expressing or not one's opposition to the budget and therefore to the government. And so all those who voted for the motion of no confidence are the opposition to this government.
The budget proposal has been a subject of controversy since it was first presented in October last year, leading to the ousting of former Prime Minister Michel Barnier in December last year. The proposed measures include austerity to combat deficits.
Between 5.4, 5.1, 4.9, 4.8% of GDP, and we'll see what the path is and what is bearable for the French deficit. We know, and we are not losing sight of the objective, which was also Michel Barnier's objective of reducing France's debt.
The proposal was also met with popular outcry, with protesters gathering outside the National Assembly throughout the day on Wednesday.
This marks the end of our broadcast for now, but please do stay tuned here on TVP World. We're back in just a moment with more interviews and features.